Whiskey, dude.
Love it.
I think we've got everyone who is starting to join us right now. This is an exciting day. I hope you guys know we are going to have an amazing webinar because we have got Bob Simon back. We've got Richard back from HMR, and I have missed these guys so much. I think it's been well over a year, so we are due for another webinar together. I definitely want you to ask questions and I want this to be interactive, so feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box. Richard will also keep an eye out on the chat box as well. And then later, you're going to hear more about HMR from Richard, but you're also going to meet our good friend Cody from Fox AE. But as you guys know, my name's Ginger. I'm with Connectionology. It's an honor to be here with you guys. Thanks for hanging in all year long for all of these webinars. YouTube channel at Connectionology to watch a few of our other webinars that we've done throughout the year. But also I'll keep you updated as we move into next year as well. For now, though, let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot of good information that we're going to cover. And Richard's going to be introducing Bob in a minute. But I just wanted to say, you guys have got to check out his new book, which is coming out in January. I'm going to put the link in the chat box for you, but this is going to be one that you definitely want. So this webinar is going to be based off of a lot of things that he's written about. So again, please ask questions. It's going to be a good time. Now, our amazing moderator, Richard, is coming back with us. My good friend out in Los Angeles. I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about, he's been working with HMR for a little like over 10 years now, or he's been in the industry for over 10 years. And I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about him. So I'm going to pull this up real quick. And if you have any questions about medical funding or anything like that, but Richard is definitely the one to ask. But let me pull this up for you real fast. So he's been in this medical funding space for well over 10 years, helping clients get all of the funding that they need for the medical care. He's conveniently located in Sacramento, and he would be happy to discuss any of your personal injury cases with you and help you figure out options for your injured client. A couple of neat things about Richard, which a lot of people probably don't know, which I wanted to mention, is that he loves animals, Mother Nature, being outside, having deep conversations with anybody when it comes to emerging science or anything molecular biology and psychology, anything to astrophysics. He enjoys fishing, hunting, sports shooting, as well as archery and long walks on the beach. So, Richard,
With Bob.
I agree with you on that last one as well. But when you live in a place like California, you've got everything at your fingertips.
I do.
It's beautiful. But thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to have a good webinar.
Thank you. Appreciate that lovely introduction, Ginger. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy I can be here with my buddy Bob. I know it was a long time coming, but here we are and we made it happen. And I love that we're going to share this valuable information that Bob has built from his experience being a trial lawyer. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bob Simon. There's Mr. Bob Simon. So let me share with you a little brief background on Bob. First and foremost, and this comes from the bottom of my heart, Mr. Simon excels at trial law, but more importantly, he's an incredible father, an incredible husband, a fantastic brother, a friend, and just an outstanding human being. I don't think he's much older than me, but he's my role model, to be frank. He's an amazing person. He's a co-founder of Simon Law Group, aka the Justice Team. And no, you're not getting old and seeing doubles. He co-founded the Justice Team with his twin brother, Brad. There he acts as the primary litigator and sometimes the comic relief. At least he thinks he is. His sheer passion for and determination to help those less fortunate and who are suffering helped him grow his boutique firm into a 9-figure annual practice recognized by industry peers throughout the country. Bob, the kid from Pittsburgh, was given compassion from his lovely parents. So when his uncle was struck by a drunk driver and lost the use of his legs, Bob was determined to convert this energy of compassion into justice for those who are in need of a law angel. And Bob did not stop there. He knew his trials and tribulations needed to be shared with the world in the form of knowledge, so he co-founded Justice HQ, a collaborative workspace and a network aimed at helping lawyers break free and grow their own solo practices. Bob and his team went to create a successful conference called Mardi Gras, which I attend every year, and it's one of my favorites of all time. It's amazing, which continues to grow every year. And from the efficient ability to create workshops and classrooms to educate attorneys to further their education and the latest and greatest knowledge in trial law and medicine. He recently launched an attorney share platform. It's called Attorney Share, which facilitates, referrals between attorneys, digitalizing archaic referral systems. Since 2012, Bob has tried 50 cases as lead, winning 46, 3 being overturned, with verdicts and settlements totaling over $100 million annually. It's big numbers, Bob. Congratulations, man. To mix in a little fun with his busy calendar, because we all know it's all about balance, right? He hosts a whiskey-fueled legal talk show called The Bourbon of Proof, and other shows on his growing podcast, Justice Team Network. And as Ginger formally introduced his book, Trying Dis-Injury Cases, that is, I believe it's available now, Bob, correct?
Yeah, well, it's pre-order because it comes out in January, but they had to reopen the pre-order because there were so many orders for it. But we're going to go over some of these tactics today. So I'm excited for it. Excited for it.
Yeah, without further ado, Mr. Simon, here's the mic.
Yeah, and I think we'll drop that link in here. But if 4 years ago or so during COVID, my friend Nick Rowley reached out. He's like, man, you got to write a book because like I get monster verdicts on these disc injury cases or like these, regular rear end car crash cases we see every day in our practice, just because I do them with a different mindset. We teach a lot of people how to do it. I'm big now on giving back so everybody can crush all these verdicts, because I truly believe that if we do everything consistently the right way, that the client gets the biggest success, and we all do. We all win as an industry. And I thank Rich and Connectology. I mean, I met Rich at a dinner up at San Francisco, and we ended up sitting next to each other. Never met before. We talked all night about crazy shit. I mean, just stuff that you never think of. Of course, bourbon and whiskey was part of the conversation. And thanks, Rich, for being my conference drinking buddy, because he's not afraid to have a breakfast bourbon while we sit in the classrooms and learn together. But we came out with our own whiskey this year. We did a special barrel select with Cat's Eye Distillery. Gene Nassif is a lawyer out of Iowa who's been on the Bourbon Proof show, but he has a distillery with his family and friends. So we did a 12-year. But I'm going to show you guys some tactics, and please ask any questions in the chat. We're passionate about this with Justice HQ, the community that we kind of thrive and do workshops with this kind of stuff and teach. But I want to be able to give it everybody to a big audience. So let me share my screen. Oh, that's my marketplace. You don't want to see that. It's this one.
I'm pretty sure.
Yep. Don't look at the cases I'm looking at. Don't look at those. So here's the kind of stuff that we're going to talk about today is we're going to go over some of the medicine. I'm not going to touch too much on bad faith. That's going to be a whole different thing, but I want to go through strategically from a little bit of the medicine education, just to reframe everybody and how we should be thinking about these cases, to get into the depositions, kind of the discovery piece, then go through, like, we're starting to think about experts, doctor depositions, because I think that's where we win a lot of these cases, is whenever we're getting the treating doctors, and I'll show you how we do that. Thinking about trial exhibits, damages, closing, all that kind of stuff. Hour and a half probably is not the time we need. We can do this over several days. That's usually what we do. I like to talk individually about people's cases. So here's the thing is what is a spine case worth? And here's the thing is it can be worth whatever you confidently tell the jury or insurance adjuster what the loss to your client is. People have thoughts for so long that if you have like a lumbar discectomy surgery or a fusion surgery or facet injections, that it's worth X amount, because that's what's been dictated to us by the insurance industry and what they're willing to pay. But for a juror that knows that these are lifelong injuries, if somebody has neck or back pain or has a surgery, it's not something that has a magical wave of wand and it's cured. What you want to be able to reframe is, how is it affecting your client's life? How's it making it worse? How the jury can help make it better. And that's the reframe. If you're concentrating on the client's story, you will be able to win every time, to know them so intimately and how it's affecting them. So at the end, it won't matter if this was an acute or an aggravation cause, or if it's a soft tissue injury or facet injury. If it causes so much disability and problems to your client, that's how I've been getting these big awards. I took some of these from Tom Dickerson, a friend of mine, Kansas City. He's a Missouri and Kansas lawyer, and we've done a few talks like this because he gets massive verdicts using the same recipe in the Midwest, where people say this can't be done. Like, he's getting massive results doing the exact same thing. So first of all, just a little bit of why it's so important. These disc injury cases is it's mostly a neurological deficit. It's causing nerve problems, causing nerve damage, causing nerve pain. So when you injure a nerve, it does a lot of different things. Like this talk's not going to be about like, oh, if your client's a quadriplegic or paraplegic. I mean, if you have that case, you don't need this talk. You just hope they have enough insurance to compensate your client for it, right? But these are kind of the cases that we're going to talk about. It's just like there's a disc injury case. You can't date if it's acute or not, and you got to look at the clinical symptomology. So everything starts with the spine. So here's why they don't pay, because insurance companies don't value those invisible injuries because they just have a set amount that they put in their computer. These are the medical bills. This is what the futures are. This is what this injury's worth. What they miss are like the emotional injuries. A lot of things that go hand in hand with spine injuries is chronic pain. What goes with chronic pain is depression, is anxiety, loss of quality of life. The defense never sees those coming. You do not need to hire, and I would tell you not to hire a psychologist or a psychotherapist because it'll just muddy the waters. The defense will get one. Most jurisdictions, the plaintiff alone and the people around them can talk about the mental anguish, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD. I had one trial where I tried with Jason Sanchez, who's now a partner in my office, but he was a different firm at the time. And I had him come in to represent a passenger, and I represented the driver of a vehicle that was hit by a truck. And we, on his client alone, who had no medical specialist, saw a medical doctor one time, got a $3 million verdict for just her. I got more on mine, but $3 million verdict for a self-diagnosed PTSD, depression, and anxiety, which the defense had no defense for. And you just he spent so much time with the client, her dad, her family, that it was such an emotional story of what she went through just from this crash. And that's kind of what we do. So um, people aren't blessed to have people like Rich in their life that can tell you the best doctor to hire right away when your client gets hurt. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that go to the wrong doctors to start, or they go to a chiropractor that's going to maybe misdiagnose, or a general practitioner that doesn't understand the injury. That's kind of where some cases are won or lost in that like 60 to 90-day treatment window, which we'll kind of go over. So here's kind of some of the medicine. And Rich, if you see any questions, I like to go as we go because I'm running the PowerPoint. So if you see anything or if somebody asks a question, feel free. I'd like to make this interactive. So if anybody has anything, shout it out. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Just real quick, they're asking if they can get copies of the slides.
Yes, I will send them to Ginger. Actually, at the end of this, I'm going to put it into the chat. I'll have a downloadable link. I'll send it to Ginger too, so you can download it. But you got to save it because the link expires like in a week. But if you download it, it'll be good.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, just general anatomy. It's just jurors are very impressed, and so are other experts if you just understand general terms. If you're looking at the side view here, sagittal, you'll see this on MRIs. But you just know what the vertebrae is, facets, where the facet joints are, how the cervical is the top, the thoracic is in the middle. You're not going to deal a lot with thoracic injuries because the rib cage is tied to it. It's a pretty sturdy structure. You might be able to find some other injuries within there, but mostly what we're dealing with in our cases are those cervical spines, the neck and the lumbar, usually the lower part of the cervical and the lower part of the lumbar, because those are also the most susceptible parts of our spine for injury because they take on the most stress through what's called the degenerative process, which we all should be embracing because everybody has it. But the bottom part of your neck is probably the one that has most degeneration in it because that's what at the base of our neck, what has the most, and same thing with the lower back. Just some other slides I have here that's the lumbar part, bottom left. That's how they number L1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then S1. Same thing with the neck. But here's like just looking a little bit about just some of the stuff that's inside the body, just to generally understand. So you have the discs that are these fleshy parts here at the top labeled disc, and then that's kind of the cushy part in between the vertebral processes, the vertebrae, right? So you want to look at the disc here, and the spinal cord is usually running right next to it. So you can see the spinal cord. So what you want to be able to see is if there's a disc injury, you'll never be able to see on an imaging study a hurting disc. It just doesn't show up. It's either hurting or it's not. You can't see if it's in pain. But what you can see is if a little bit of this disc pushes out, it protrudes or herniates or bulges, and it starts hitting a nerve. If it's hitting that nerve, that's when you're going to start to have what we call radicular pain, where it goes down to people's arms, and we'll go over the dermatomes or go down their legs, etc. But it's just important just to kind of know and situate yourself, because if you understand the science, watch YouTube videos, whatever you have to do. I learned a lot of this just being a junkie, watching YouTube videos, and then also sitting in on expert depositions with neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and hearing them explain it and teach. Because if you're able to sit up here and teach the jury these things, it seems like you understand the medicine very well, huge credibility point. But yeah, these are a lot of the things that we'll kind of go over during this. Cervical spine, thoracic spine, lumbar spine, and the sacrum is like your little tailbone, which we don't use down there, but that's kind of just general stuff. Here's again these close-ups on all of these different parts of like the disc, the spinal root, and all kind of things where they lay. So I have a cool little spinal model, which I mean I can send anybody if they reach out. I have one on the cervical spine, the lumbar spine that I use for every trial just to show the jury where everything is. Because when you go up and do opening statement, you can show them where the injuries are, literally walk around a spine model and kind of run a master class in front of the jury. So one of the most imaging study that we're going to use in our cases to prove these disc injuries, because they're considered soft tissue, is the MRI, which is what we're looking at on the left part here. And this is the lumbar spine. You can see it tails down at the bottom where your tailbone is. So the lumbar spine is where we have a lot of injuries to our clients, because you have a lot of degeneration there. You're susceptible to injury. You get in a car crash. Now you have symptomology. On the right, we have an X-ray, might be a CT scan, but either way, they both look at just bones. They're not good at seeing disc injuries, nerve injuries, but it can show you where the bones are sitting, stuff like that. But there's two different things. So like you're not going to see a lot of these disc injuries within an X-ray or CT scan. And that's one of the big red herrings we hear a lot from the defense is, well, they had a normal X-ray at the ER and normal CT scan of the spine at the ER. It's a red herring, because it's not going to show you the disc injuries. It's going to show you an acute fracture to a bone, but it's not going to be able to show you, was there a large herniation, extrusion, what's going on with the nerve. It's not going to show that to you. And the more that you know that, the more you can just ask the treating doctors those questions in their depositions or trial testimony, and they will say, oh yeah, that's not a good tool. Of course you can have an acute injury and have a negative CT scan or X-ray in the ER. But the big one here is going to be on the left. That's an MRI. MRI is going to show you the soft tissues, how the discs look. One important note is MRIs still aren't perfect. I mean, the highest Tesla magnet or resolution we could see is, I think, is a 3.0. They're working a 4.5, but it still doesn't show you everything. It's not absolute. There's some new technology coming out. I think you'll be able to see better. But one practice point for all of you, when you get that report back from your client that has the MRI report, first look and see what the resolution of that MRI was. Because some of these facilities are absolutely shitty, especially if you're doing a stand-up MRI. It's usually like a 0.3 Tesla magnet resolution. So you'll see you get a stand-up MRI, then you get a year, like a year and a half later, your client is still in a lot of pain, gets another MRI with like a high, like a 1 or 1.5 Tesla magnet. All of a sudden they see all these like injuries and all these things going on. It's like these two spines look completely different. Well, it's because the imaging sucked. So look at that, and it's a good calling point to call out with a radiologist, with a defense radiologist, that the 0.3 Tesla, the stand-up one, isn't going to show much anyway. So that's why when you have people like Rich in your life, is you want to be able to get these MRIs. They're critical for your case. The read of that radiologist, when they do the treating doctor read, and the resolution of that MRI can be very, very helpful to your case. And if you go to the wrong place, it can absolutely crush you, because they just did a bad imaging study. People didn't know where to look, and it can be bad. Just some other stuff, and I'll kind of explain why I think this is important. So we see this as a disc from another view. So you can see the disc in between the vertebrae here. We have the nucleus pulposus right here. So we see a lot of these MRI reports where it says annular fissure, annular tear. That's the annulus out here. What happens is it's just like a little tear that can or cannot be caused by trauma. You want to look at the clinical picture to see kind of when that started happening, but it's like deflating air out of a tire. Because what happens if you have a little tear in your disc, it'll start to seep out this nuclear material, the nucleus pulposus. So there's something called, and I think I'll talk about this later, but it's called chemical radiculopathy, where if you puncture that a little bit and these disc material sips out, you will not see that on any imaging study, not even MRI. It'll be invisible. But if your client looks like their disc is not hitting a nerve, but they're having all this nerve pain, and you see there's an annular tear, or annular fissure, or a bright white spot or signal, and they're having a nerve pain, it might mean that this nuclear material is seeping out and hitting the nerve. Little more advanced stuff, but it's called chemical radiculitis. When I bring it up to the defense radiologist, it usually makes their head spin and they have to concede that it's a real phenomenon. And it could totally explain why they're looking at an imaging study that looks normal, but your client's having a lot of pain and having radicular pain. One big takeaway from this, one is concentrated on the human harms. One other one's going to be embrace pre-existing condition. The other one is to concentrate on the clinical symptoms. You win these cases by showing the jury a great timeline and when the symptoms started. If you go into all these cases thinking you have to prove an acute injury every time, you will lose most of the time because these are not going to be acute injuries you can diagnostically see where the disc is just punctured, totally acute and herniated. You're going to have to do it by showing the clinical picture of when the pain started, how it all matches up, and how your client had a pre-existing condition, which we all have, which is the degenerative process, and it was made worse due to the trauma. All right, so there's another imaging stuff. Again, I like these things. It's good to show the jury when you have, if you get a negative MRI back and the doctors are telling you there's no damage in the spine and the MRI, but your client's having a lot of pain, don't give up there because these cases are still, if your client's having true blue, honest pain, it's now a pain management chronic pain case. I think these are all chronic pain cases, but when you have these facet injuries, these are very, very bad injuries that you have to do like a pain management procedure every 6 months or a year for the rest of your life to dull it down. They can be very valuable cases, but you have to be able to explain to the jury that this is a soft tissue injury, this facet joint. They injured this facet joint in the crash, and now my client needs treatment for life. I love visuals. I use a lot of surgery animations. I use Maltus Medical that does a great job with the animations to show them what like a radio frequency ablation looks like, shows you what an epidural injection looks like. So don't give up. If your client's not a surgical candidate, it doesn't mean that you don't have value in the case. It means that you have to still concentrate on the injury and the effect of it on your client. That's how you make them more valuable.
About question.
Yep.
Since we're on that subject, we mentioned Multis Medical. What is your thoughts on these 3D printer companies that print the models of the area that's damaged? What do you think about those? Do you have any thoughts?
I actually really like that. I know a lot of people are going towards it. If you can actually do a 3D model based on your client's actual spine and you have a doctor say that it's accurate, medically accurate, at least for demonstrative purposes, that again, it shows the jury how impressive you are on the knowledge of the medicine. And you can actually show the jury and hold it up and say, this is what it looks like. And here's the area. You can physically see it. So when the defense gets up and says, I didn't see nerve root irritation or I didn't see a problem, it's like, I mean, are you kidding? A jury can see that with layman eyes and don't have to be a medical doctor. But yeah, I think that's very powerful stuff.
Okay, and if you're comfortable with this, if we can take a step back, we got a question from Elisa Wilkies, but if I mispronounce that, please forgive me. She's asking about the depression. What do you respond with? How do you rebuttal when the defense argues your depression wasn't that bad? You never saw mental health treatment.
So what does a normal person do? Like a lot of people are so adverse to going to see a medical professional, they deal with it the best that they can. What I tell my clients to do is if you're having it, just make sure you tell your medical doctors about it so it's in the medical records. I just don't like to hire a specific expert for it because it allows them to go hire a neuropsychologist or someone that literally will just shit on the plaintiff and say it's all this is caused by all these other things in their life. They won't hire that person if they go to their general practitioner or they mention to their orthopedic doctor that they're having a lot of pain, it's causing depression and anxiety, and they're talking to a family member to talk it through, right? Because people deal with stuff differently. I would much rather have them go to like a church counselor or just somebody that's like a counselor type just to talk about it rather than a full-blown like medical doctor, psychiatrist type issue. But yeah, I think it's very dangerous to tell somebody their depression's not that bad. I like to bring in, and we'll talk about this later, is I never have my client up there saying, woe is me. They're the story of redemption. They're the ones that like, I'm going through all this, but here's what I'm trying to do to get better. Here's what my daily life looks like. My clients usually towards the end of the case, my case in chief, and I've called what I call damages witnesses, coworkers, family members, other folks in their life. They're talking about how bad it is. Here, I see them that they're depressed. I always go, what are their darkest days that you've seen them in? what are the better days? Because the defense likes to go back and forth. Well, on this day, you look pretty good. And well, I mean, everybody waxes and wanes, but go through every damages witness and they start telling the story of depression and anxiety and how bad it is. Usually the defense never deposes these people, so they have no idea what they're going to say. And they come up there and literally are the ones that are the drivers of damages for your client.
Yeah, thank you.
Modalities is difference again. Radiographs, like we see on the right, good for bony stuff. It's not good for soft tissue. CT is essentially a three-dimensional X-ray to see more stuff. MRI is where you're going to see a lot more of the stuff. But MRI, you're sitting there for like 23 to 28 minutes per body part. A little different procedure. There's one thing that I don't know if I put on here, but there's a good, all of these are static images, mean your body's in one fixed spot while they're taking the imaging. There's one thing called a flexion extension X-ray, where they have you move in different parts and they take X-rays as you're moving your body, because that's how people normally move, is you're not sitting in one place all day. Flexion extension X-rays will show you if there's like a disc that's slipping that won't show on any of these modalities. And it's a good indicator is if there's instability in the spine. It's a flexion extension X-ray that'll show over all of these other ones. So if your client's having all these issues and all these come up negative, you might want to ask for a flexion extension X-ray because it might be able to prove your case that they had instability.
Okay, and Bob, are any of these tests, or would you happen to know of a test that could show the chemical radio? I'm sorry, I'm hard sometimes to say medical terminology, radiocholitis, and who and which specialist can speak on this condition competently?
Any doctor can tell you that that's likely what's going on, but there's no imaging study that's going to pick it up. There is new technology that's coming out, and I think they're going to have their first scanners in the next month. And I've seen the detail, but they're essentially in like 2 minutes, they can scan the entire body and see inside like ventricles and see inside discs, and it's pretty impressive stuff. I think that's gonna, as future technology evolves, now we're gonna see a lot of, and I've seen see micro tears in there, and you may be able to see all of those things. And I think that's going to be future here in the next month or two. But I'm very interested in that because it's going to help us prove our cases a lot more. Because like when you do the CT scan, acute fracture like we see, or if you see something acute, you could see it. MRI, you can too, but with an MRI, here's one thing the defense experts will agree. Most people don't get an MRI right away. The doctors, the ER is not going to order one because it's a long test, it's expensive. I mean, by the way, the stuff that's going in the healthcare industry right now is a big blessing for us as trial lawyers, because every juror out there knows, every potential person in your jury pool knows that health insurance are denying all of your claims and they're assholes, right? They know that. So when you're going there and you're the attorney that had referred them to the doctor that helped them, got them to medical care right away, got them better, you're now the hero. You're not the roadblock to their medical treatment like a lot of these health insurance companies are. So there's a huge reframe that's going on with this. But with the MRI, they don't order it right away. It's expensive. Healthcare won't like health insurance won't approve it unless you get an X-ray. I think it's within 6 to 9 weeks after the trauma, you won't see it anymore. Like if there was edema, if there were these things that would have been there acutely, it would have been gone within 6 weeks plus. So whenever you have an MRI, usually we're about 3-4 months out when they get the MRI, and the defense expert says, I didn't see any signs of trauma in the MRI. Well, doctor, isn't it true that after 6 to 8 weeks that any trauma that would have been there would have been gone by then? And they'd be like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Yes, that's actually true. They have to admit that because it is true. So you have to look for markers to see what's the clinical picture as to what caused those issues that they have.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Just again, some other terms to know. First one just means bone stuff. We're not going to see a lot of broken bone stuff. Very obvious on X-rays. If you have one of those, it's a lot easier to case. These talks are for these ones a little bit harder. If there's a ligamentous issue, like you can still, I actually mentioned the flexion extension X-ray. You can have instability, and if it's like it's a soft tissue part of your body, but it could be a torn ligament. So if you see in a surgery report, by the way, gold, if you read every surgery report your client has, because their doctors are giving you indications that there was an acute trauma or a rupture, or they saw like absolute compression during that. Discogenic pain just means the disc itself is hurting. There's no way to really see this on imaging studies, and that's why you can actually get the defense doctors to agree that there's some doctors, a lot of orthopedic surgeons will just do surgery on a hurting disc. They've done everything they could, they did, and that's where it's coming from. I'm seeing, I don't know if there's questions on there, but I'm keep seeing the thing light up.
We have a question. It's a very specific one asked by Lori. She's asking, who can you recommend to do an anatomical drawing based on X-rays, MRI, and op report to show jury the anatomy of our client's lumbar disc herniation from being put on a traction inversion table by his knee physical therapist?
There's a lot of good ones. I think Annie Go, Gough, she's fantastic. She has a book on medical illustrations that she makes it very specific. It's specific to each case. I like, again, Maltus we use for those out of Arizona. And then, God, I'm blanking on their name. What's his name? Is it 3D? Rich, help me out here. What's
Forensics?
Yes. So they do a great job with that too. But there's a lot of good ones. You just lean on and then Seton Claggett's company in Tempe. Fuck, I'm drawing blanks. But yeah, I give you a list of the great animations one because it's pictures worth a billion words, not even just a million anymore in these cases. Something else that can help clue you that something is more acute in nature when you're looking at these discs is there's different types of herniation. So if you're reading the MRI report, again, this is a good indicator of what's going on in your case. This is the disc at the top here. If you just have what's called like a broad-based herniation, that might mean it's just due to like gravity or that degenerative process. Most likely just keep in one direction, just pushing it down. It's broad-based, right? But if you start seeing if something's more to the right or to the left, it may mean it's more of an acute trauma because it pushed something acutely to the right or acutely to the left. So when you're reading that, it's like, oh, there's a herniation more towards the right, and your client, sure enough, is complaining of right radicular pain down their arm. Now things are starting to match up. That's less likely going to be to degeneration because degeneration, your client's not like looking to the right all the time, right? Usually in the fixed space. Bulging disc. I mean, there's this book called like Nomenclature 2.0 where they try to, all these radiologists try to name things consistently. And it's all, people use the same terms interchangeably, unfortunately. Bulge is usually the lowest on the totem pole, then herniation, then protrusion, and then extrusion. If you see the word extrusion, that's almost always traumatic. It's like a teardrop type look on how it's coming out of the disc. But again, it's always boils down. You can prove your case two different ways. One is an absolutely acute injury, or two is an aggravation of a pre-existing condition. That pre-existing condition is the degenerative process, which every single person after the age of 20 has in their spine. So this is, I put in here, yeah, so you're going to see that extrusion. The protrusion is the one on the left. It's, again, a little more triangular shape pushed out. The extrusion, you can see it's greater. It just looks more like a teardrop type thing. It's mostly always acute. If you have an extrusion, it calls it in the MRI, much easier to win your case. That's why it's very important when you send your clients out for the MRI, that report is going to be used by both sides for better or worse. And what that radiologist says will be used by both sides for better or worse. Send it to a reputable outfit. I like companies like Expert MRI. These other facilities have great radiologists that can read them anywhere in the world, but know what they're looking for. They do enough of these cases that they know how to call it when they see it, know that it may or may not be related to trauma. And when we go later on, what I'll teach you is you want to depose those doctors as non-retained or treating doctors as the radiologist reading the report and give them all these hypotheticals and ask their opinions on the imaging studies. Jurors love that stuff. This person's independent. They just read the MRI one time. It was like a $500 read. And my thing in front of the jury is like, what, you mean to tell me that this doctor that got paid $500 for a read is willing to risk their medical license on some sort of conspiracy fraud, right? They literally look at images and told you what they saw. The doctor then relied on it and helped the patient. I am. Let's go through some of this. Another thing, so just you'll see a lot of these terminologies in the MRI reports. Extraforaminal means it's outside the foramen. You can see where the green is. Foraminal's here. It's just like central disc bulge is here. We see a lot of things where we see like extraforaminal or foraminal in the MRI reports. Usually means it's off to the side here. And harder to see, and everyone will agree with you, if there's like a nerve root irritation or compression and over on this side, a lot harder to see that in the imaging study. They'll see during surgery, but very hard to see in imaging. Again, we got the lumbar spine. Just to orient you guys, the numbers L1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or S5, S1, sorry. Another thing to note, again, when we're down here, L5, S1, this disc down here is usually the most susceptible to injury. A lot of our cases are going to have the most of the injuries here or L4, 5, okay? If you see a pristine spine at L5, S1, L4, L5, and then there's a herniation at just L3, L4, that might likely be due to a trauma because it's very unlikely this person had no degeneration in the areas where you expect like a lot of issues and all of a sudden have an issue in the more mid part of the lower back. Again, another clue for you. So most of our MRI reports, you're going to see pretty good, maybe some bulges due to getting older, L2 all the way to L4, and they see some issues at the bottom here. And this is usually the fight likes to say with the defense is those are the most areas susceptible to degeneration. So it's just people getting older, not this acute car crash that caused the symptoms to go haywire. All right, I use these dermatome maps in almost every trial. I'll show you the one I actually use, but it shows if you have a disc injury that's irritating the nerve, how it's going to travel down the body. If you can show this consistently with like a pain diagram your client filled out, and then an MRI report which matches that what we call dermatome, where the pathway of the nerve from the lower back or cervical spine, and then that is later showed during surgery that that was compressed, that's how you win a lot of these cases. And if you could show your client had a clean medical history, maybe seen general practitioner, never had any complaints like this, or if they did, it was a couple of times and that was it, and all of a sudden they have these neurological complaints, it's a good way to match up the clinical picture. Another very good indicator is a lot of these spines, or a lot of these clinical tests that orthopedic doctors do can help prove to you that there's a disc injury. If you see what's called like a straight leg test and it's positive, it means there may be lumbar compression. It's good to talk to the treating doctors because they're the ones that are suspecting that these clues that there's a trauma or an acute on trauma thing that's going on clinically. All right, 7-8 figure cases. Let's talk about this. So,
Hey, Bob,
yep,
can I interject real quick?
yep.
Sorry, man. Ginger would like to introduce, if you're good right now, to introduce Fox AE
Yep.
sponsor. Awesome. All right, Ginger.
This is perfect timing. Thank you guys so much. Bob, this is great information. We are already getting so many good comments behind the scenes about all of this. Again, just a reminder, guys, we'll make sure that you get a copy of Bob's slides after the webinar as well. But we're going to just take a really quick break because I want to bring in Cody with Fox AE. You guys are doing amazing work over there, working on all sorts of different things like animations, graphics, demonstratives. And you guys have heard time and again, John Romano raves about all the work that he does, and everybody else in the firm as well. I mean, Cody, you're doing great stuff. We're excited to have you with us.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Ginger and Bob. Thoroughly enjoying this. And you said, animations are worth a billion words. And I wanted to share you this focus group that saw an animation of spinal surgery in particular. And they were so mad. Oh, can I send the request to share my screen? Anyway, and they were so angry after watching the animation and the day in the life that the focus group wanted to offer $1 billion. And so they use that as leverage for some settlement. And so I just wanted to show you that. Speaking of a billion, let's see here. So we do a lot of, graphics, the cata equina here with the, disc herniations and things like that, giving context on the left, and we'll match it up. We've got physicians' assistants that have been in spinal surgeries, and we run it by them. They do our quality control, so they've actually been in spinal surgeries, and so and that's an important nuance, as in, oh well, this tool does this and this tool does that, and to actually see that before it goes to your doctor, and then obviously this stuff is approved by your doctor. But we can actually show, if there's herniations or this was actually paralysis. And so they have to adjust the spine. And then we can zoom out and show all of the preparations and the incisions and things like that. I'll go ahead and speed it up and kind of show you We'll show you the incision, but the retractors, we're doing a med mal case right now where the retractors hit an artery. And so complex or simple cervicals, and I'll cover simple in just a second. I got a little surprise for you. But and then the retractors come in. So it's fun. We also have an affiliate consultant, Dr. Wright, and he's a neuroradiologist. And so he can check out this stuff. And so anything you need. We do a lot of work with Mark Lanier, John Romano. So posterior stuff, that kind of stuff. Here's what I wanted to show you. This is kind of fun. Uh, so today only, you can actually go in here, and for any kind of like stock stuff that you need, if you type in Simon for the code, for the discount code, you can get $50 or 50% off. So like you can get some of these for like $100. And these are really cool, based on like a lot of attorneys and a lot of doctors are saying, hey, I'm seeing these injuries all the time. Can you zoom in and show particular ligaments and things like that? Well, you can just go in here and add it to your cart and purchase it. We literally have like every single cervical, surgery that you can think of, every single herniation on the cervical, for every level. So it's fun. Just add it to your cart, and then and you can buy it, and it gets emailed to you, and type in right here, Simon. That's all you have to do. And
Dude, I
and then
love
you're
it.
in. So
Dude,
it's kind
Cody,
of
this is great stuff. I mean, this is exactly what we were talking about. This is how you get a massive amount. And again, don't wait for trial to use these. You should be marking these as exhibits. I mark them as trial exhibits, and then what I'll do, like for that animation, is I'll walk the treating doctor through it or another doctor to lay the foundation for it. But you're citing the trial exhibit, and if you're doing that early enough in your case, even the discovery phase, that's how you get your cases resolved. Because like, oh shit, they're ready for trial. Look at this animation. It is money very well spent. Don't think you have to. I mean, a lot of this, again, it's driven on what's the policy limit on recoverability on the other side. But if you have that out there, spend the money. And a lot of people will, companies like HMR and others will hold the paper for you so it doesn't cost you that money up front. It's an investment in your client and their case. So this stuff is great, Cody. Thank you, man.
Hey,
Go
anytime. I'll give you the link. Remember, Simon.
Well, I'll do it.
Buy some big boards.
I love
Thanks,
it.
Bill.
Thank you so much, Cody. And don't forget to put your information in the chat box so that way everybody can stay in touch. But thank you again so much for all that you do. And I know we're going to be seeing you after the holidays, which will be May 8th through the 9th. That's going to be our next seminar. It's going to be our TBI fourth annual seminar, which Bob, we really want you to come and speak. So I'll be talking with you about that afterward. But it is going to be so much fun because we're going to Idaho this time.
Oh,
So you can go check out our website. It has all the details.
when's this Idaho situation?
It's going to be May 8th through the 10th. It's going to be at a beautiful lodge in the mountains. We've always done it in Nashville, but we figured, you know what, we're going to do something new this year. We're going to go somewhere beautiful. And John and Nancy Romano have been there. They've told me they love it. So we're going to go, and I hope you'll
Sun
be there.
Valley? Sun Valley? Is that what you guys are going to do?
Yes, Sun Valley Lodge. Yep.
Well played.
All right.
So
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Cody.
I saw a really good question in the chat about I gotta get through this, about repeat MRIs. So repeat MRIs is very, very common in everything that we're doing because it's like in the real world. If somebody gets MRI, doctor usually tries conservative measures, epidural injections, physical therapy. They're going to want to do another MRI before they're going to maybe want to do surgery to check to see how things have changed. Now that change or lack of change or difference during this time frame can help you prove your case that there was an event before that first MRI that's one that set this in motion. It's just not the normal degenerative process that during these two fixed time points in time, that's not normal degeneration. People don't like go downhill that quickly in their spine. There had to be an escalating event. But the big thing is who's reading that second MRI? What happens in the real world is that what you should be doing is your client should be taking their MRI images to that second radiologist. So when they're reading them, they're not reading them in a vacuum. They see what's going on before, they talk to the patient, they're going to look at the imaging studies from the second MRI and compare it and see what has changed. That second MRI is so critical. I would strongly encourage you to work with an imaging facility or somebody like Expert MRI, or that can get a really good radiologist to do that comparison read. Because that comparison read, they're going to be able to talk a lot more about causation, a lot more about like the need for surgery and all these other things, because they're comparing them. And again, I think I'll talk about this later, is I never let treating doctors be the retained expert. I like to have a completely different person that doesn't have the medical care on a lien or letter of protection or owed any money like the treating doctors may. A completely different person. Because if you have, imagine a deposition or even for trial or trial testimony of this doctor that just did a read of a MRI and compared to the prior MRI, and they sing like a canary for everything that you're talking about, that's weighed 20 times more than any expert will say it, for sure. So yeah, it's a critical point in the case, because if you just have some, I could use a really bad word, some person that's reading the second MRI, there's no freaking clue what they're doing, they can absolutely sink your case because they just don't know. They just don't know the game. They don't know what causation is, etc. All right, let me get through some of this. Disc bulges, we talk about disc bulges. Some of these things you could see with your eye. I mean, if a juror looks at this, they could see this. These are little white discs. White usually means there's more water in them. They're healthier. You can see this black disc and this thing sticking out into the like spinal canal area, right? That's going to cause nerve pain. You can see that with your eyes, right? Juries, again, pictures worth 1,000 words, billion words. I always have actual cuts from the MRI that I'll usually have my radiologist or my treating doctors find for me that help prove the case to show the jurors. And I usually have an image, like a still medical illustration. So I could try to get that back in the jury room if I try to get that in exhibits. And I always have an animation of the surgery or future recommendations for surgeries or facet injection, of all those things. And I think those bring everything together very nicely. Just more imaging studies that we use. But this is a good thing that I put in here is if somebody has like just a splinter, like you can feel that little splinter. Imagine having just that little splinter hitting the nerve on your spine constantly. That little splinter can cause a crap ton of pain and disability in your client, and just catastrophic after effects. Annular fissures or tears, they're used interchangeably. We talked about how to identify those, but this is where you'll see it on the imaging. Now, again, this is where we're going to use those 2 time-framed MRIs. Here's some clues that could help you prove that this was the catalyst, the car crash or whatever, the trip fall, whatever it is. MRI 1 done, maybe 3 months after the crash. MRI 2 done, maybe a year and a half after the crash. MRI 1 shows an annular tear, or it says bright white signal. MRI 2 does not show either of those things. That means that there was probably a trauma close in time to the first one, because that could be trauma, could be not. But if it appears in the first one and not the second one, it could have healed in that time frame, which means, there was a trauma back here. Another one, people get afraid whenever they see the size of the herniation or protrusion shrank. We see this all the time. First MRI says it's 4 millimeters. Second one says it's 2. People are, oh my God, I lost my case. No, your case is actually stronger, because the body's natural tendency is to heal. If you have that disc push out, it's going to try to reabsorb, which again is that clue that there was an event right before that first MRI or sometime in that year past that caused that to herniate out, and then it reabsorbed. Another thing is if it gets worse, it's another indication that air is continuing to coming out the tire, the disc is shrinking, and they need to do something about it. You can argue both ways, but if you know the medicine, it's a good way to win these cases. You can see that white spot on these MRIs. It's a bright white spot. Could or could not be traumatic. I like to argue that it is, especially if you don't see the second imaging study. This is my example is air out of the tire. If you puncture that tire with an annular fissure, put that bright white signal, air is going to come out. It's going to continue to make worse. Yeah, you can keep driving on it, but eventually it's going to get bad and look like that. Herniated discs. We're going to go through this because I have so much good stuff to tell you guys. But here's one thing that I will impress on you. The size does not matter. The size of the herniation does not matter. It's the effect that it has on the nerve. People fall in love with the numbers of millimeters on a protrusion in the MRI report. That don't mean shit, because somebody can have a really narrow spinal canal, and a 1 millimeter one can cause a lot of pain. So here's what I want you to look for whenever you're looking at the MRI reports. If you see the words compression, likely surgical, right? If you see stenosis, Another way that could be irritating the nerve, pharyngeal encroachment, extrusion. Look for these ones, not so much how big the herniation is, it's the effect that it's going to be on it. Again, think about that image. More stuff here. Let me go through some of this stuff. It's just showing how they do epidurals. Again, I love images to show people how intrusive this is when the defense goes up and says these things should cost $2,500. Then you show them they have to go on like this table under anesthesia and you put these injections in and they got to do these things for life. It becomes a lot more real. Another thing that an epidural injection is good for is actually diagnosing radicular pain or where it's coming from. So they usually inject at the level above and it gets that numbing effect. So somebody injects an epidural, gets a numbing effect. The radicular pain, say it's in the lower back and they had pain going down their butt into their calves and it goes away even for a week or two, and then it comes back. It's an indication that there's an entrapped nerve somewhere because it dulled the pain, it came back, then it wears off. You get that numbness and tingling, radiating pain again. Again, imaging, I use these in a lot of trials. You can see they're taking out the disc, putting in another disc. These are more examples of stuff that I use. I use a still image to hopefully get it back in the jury room, animation, like what we just saw, and then the actual imaging studies cuts from it. Another good way that this is why I get so much in future damages in our case, is it's widely accepted in all the literature, and every doctor will agree with you, with something called adjacent segment disorder, where if you have a fusion, the levels above and below are going to carry extra stress because it's fused, it's fixed. So it's double the stress on the areas above and below. The studies will tell you, and it's like the Hillebrandt study was the first one way back in the day, and everybody's got on top of this, is that about after 20 years after your fusion, you are medically likely to start having adjacent segment issues and possibly surgery. A lot of doctors now sophisticated enough to say it's 1 to 3% per year compounded over time that they will need an adjacent level fusion. Why is that important? Now you're able to board another fusion with pain management in the future for your clients, but don't forget the human story with this. I usually go over milestones of like, I got a 40-year-old guy, he has a surgery. What's life going to look at 60, 70, 80 for him when he's going to have these issues again? Yeah, he's doing well now. They got video of him, changing a tire after the surgery and playing with his kids. That's now because he got the surgery and it's helping him. But that's not what we're here for. We're doing for the rest of his life. 20, 30 years from now, whenever he's grandpap, he's not going to be able to do this stuff. Now he's got to get a fusion at the level above, right? This is how you're building the general damages and weaving them into medically accepted literature. So this is a great image. I usually pull these from a post-operation CT scan to show the actual imaging and show what it looks like with the hardware in there, so the jury understands when they had adjacent injury. Again, if it's not a disc injury, it could be a facet injury. This is pain management for life. These are just as valuable cases. You got to pay attention to your client, their disability. This is a pain management procedure. That's who diagnoses and treats most of these. And what the important thing here is we put is these are permanent. They have large life care plans. They have a lot of economic damages. So if you're in a state where sometimes the general damages are capped and the economics are not, so why you need a life care plan. That's why you need to talk about the injury and the large effect of that. So yeah, I put an animation in here too. Again, we just saw one of these, but these are super powerful. They're not that expensive to get. Ligament injuries. I'm going to try to get through some of this. We see these in MRI reports, spondylolisthesis, retrolisthesis, just slipping backwards and forwards. You could see that an MRI could be a fusion candidate. Let's show some of these. Broken bones are easy. This is just something what else it can be. Don't give up if your client's still in pain. Send them to a pain management specialist or maybe other stuff going on. All right, so let's go through litigation. Man, there's so much to do here. Remember, I always talk, what are the defense's theories? It's degeneration, it's not acute. They're going to say the same thing every time, right? This is just the aging process. How do we defeat that early on? It's the clinical picture. History of pain complaints, what's documented after, how does it match up with the MRI report? Does it match up with the dermatome map? Is that what the doctors are treating? This is how we do it, and I'll show you some stuff that we do at our firm. Don't try to hide anything. I mean, be super upfront. If people try to hide prior injuries or medical treatment, it actually makes your case easier because it shows that you were set up for injury more because you had a prior condition, which most everybody has. But I'm going to show you this is how we do win in written discovery, and then with the plaintiff deposition, some techniques, and then the treating deposition. Oh my God, are we going to do a master class? John Romano just showing up? I feel blessed.
Uh-oh. Hey,
Wow.
I just wanted to pop in and say a quick hello. This is awesome. We got everybody around here in the office watching. Unbelievable job. This is such great information. I'm just so thrilled that you're doing this. It's an honor for Connectionology to have you here, and it sounds like you're on a roll and having a great time. Just a quick hello. Awesome job. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping in, John.
Where are you? Are you in like some sort of congressional library? I mean, this is pretty impressive.
No, we're at our office.
I love it.
I kid around. I tell everybody this is the bookcase that I built when COVID hit.
Oh, I love it. Oh man.
I meant to say surprise.
Man, I'm
It's
kind
not
of
even my
blushing
birthday
a
yet.
little bit. It's
Hey,
not
well,
that often you get to see a rock star
keep
like that.
going. Keep going. We're listening on the other computer in there.
And what Rich said earlier about, the stuff I take important being a dad and a husband, there's nobody else that epitomizes that than John Romano. So family first, individual. All right, I got 30 minutes to crush through some of this stuff. Let's try to do it. Critical things during your case of the written discovery, how you respond to it, because they could publish that in trial. So better be writing something that you want a jury to see. Plaintiff depositions, how to answer questions, and treater depositions, which is where we win a lot of these cases, is the treating doctors, the treating radiologist, and taking their depositions, preserving it for trial, and just hitting play and just saying, I can win my case just by playing that deposition. Always the issues to look out for prior injuries, the radiculopathy, the waxing and waning injury, the damages story, and you don't want to be that overreaching plaintiff because they may have video of you doing all these things that you said you could not. And of course, lean care. So, and again, I'll send you all these studies, but we respond to written discovery. I like to give them everything that we have. We try to do an in-home visit with our client before the discovery even comes to get all this information, the damages photos, the witnesses they may be able to testify about, give the defense everything that they have so they can evaluate the case and pay you. I mean, you shouldn't have to wait to trial to get paid. But if they want to continue to open up a policy or not be reasonable, you can go back and say, hey, look at all this stuff we gave you. You had everything. You still didn't do everything. Before we do discovery, even before we file a lawsuit, we investigate our own clients. Do an ISO report. I investigate the doctors. See, are these doctors that were inheriting a case or got referred to us? Are these doctors like scumbags? Are they really good people? Investigate them. Make sure. Your clients can tell you maybe they forget or maybe they're trying to withhold something. Get their prior medical records. Find out who their OBGYN is or their general practitioner, or go to the Kaiser. Get all those records. So when you answer discovery, you have all the information, and you can use a lot of these AI tools that we use every day to help you summarize those records, to go through them if they're voluminous. But you want to be truthful when you go in there. Above all, if your client tells the truth in their deposition and it's backed up by all the stuff that you can win these cases. It's absolutely devastating if you lie. Embrace pre-existing condition. Be truthful about the priors. Trust but verify. Every time a conservative jurisdiction trying a case, you better believe Ronald Reagan's up here saying trust but verify. I did not know his middle name was Wilson until I started making that slide.
Nice throwback. Hey, Bob, real quick, what do you think about companies like Spear Investigations that dig up whistleblowers from the companies, that the defendant companies?
I love that stuff. So we do a lot. I work a lot with Spear. Their guy's a big whiskey guy too. We talked about Still Austin was a good bourbon one that we actually drank together. But Spear is a great one because they will be able to find disgruntled employees. If you're doing like a product liability case or a premises case, a trip and fall, you find absolute gold with that kind of stuff. And also for your clients, like it's nominal cost to do an ISO search to see what other insurance claims your clients have out there. First thing I do when a new client walks in the door, I go to their social media. I look them up. I mean, defense
Detective's best friend, right?
Yeah, defense is going to do it. So
Wow.
you better look and see what's out there about your client.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
And a question about framing. Do you want to wait for that, or will you cover framing after the couple slides, or you want that question now?
yeah, give it to me now. Give it to me now.
Okay. So Taylor Gaines asked, if you have a case where you suspect an acute event but don't want to fall for the all or nothing trap of proving it's acute, how do you frame the argument to let the jury know you win, whether it's an exacerbation or acute?
So great, and I think proud new papa there, Mr. Gaines, and he's trying a lot of cases out of San Diego and California. But I think you want to. I have a two road slide that I say it's like all roads lead to Rome. In this case, we win both ways. One, if it's an acute injury, or two, aggravation thereof. And then I'll usually show the jury instruction right after that. And I'll get to that. It's here's the frame. Here's the causation jury instruction. Here's the aggravation jury instruction. As you know, we win on either of these. So even if what the defense says is true, is my client had degenerative process, which we all do, and they were made symptomatic due to the crash, then we still win. And I usually get those concessions from the defense, and I'll show you those. But I'm gonna show you how we answer questions in our, just to hedge these. You can see my client had a prior injury in this case. You can see that is asymptomatic for 3 years. Went through the medical records, made sure that my client did not have any lower back complaints for 3 years, did before, but so the answer matches up. Says, yeah, I had priors, but I've been good for a while, right? Because if they blow up this answer in a jury trial, you want to be able to defend it. You can see down here, never say never. Tell my clients, never say you can never do things. It's a little harder when you have clients that speak another language because of the interpretation is not the same. They're not saying, it's just, you got to be a little nuanced with that. So if your client says in deposition, are you able to carry your children? I never am able to carry my children. Say, wait, I just want to have a clarification on the interpretation. Do you mean absolutely never, or you have problems doing it? Because they're two different things. And one could destroy your case if they have video of your client carrying their children. But you can see down here how we answer. Plaintiff is still able to perform the same activities as before, however, with limitations, right? That's a good answer. You can play with that. No matter what happens, you can win a trial with that one still.
All right, so Bob, we got a couple questions in the Q&A window too. Do you want to give like 5 minutes towards the end to answer these back to back, or?
Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so we got five actually. We got a question about ISO report. Who are you using for your ISO reports?
I actually don't know, but my team orders them every time. I could get back to you on the ISO reports. I know in California it's pretty easy to get, but I know my buddy in Florida says it's much harder to do, and he has a company that does that. That'll just find it for you, but I can get that for you.
So we covered those first two. Okay. Let's see here. What if you can't get a treating doctor to agree to a depot? By Danielle.
Yeah. So here's the thing, is like, they know they're going to show up. So what I do with treating doctors is I will send them a trial subpoena. So at least in California, if you send a trial subpoena, you do not have to have a proof of service to the defense because it's a trial subpoena. I'll send a trial subpoena to the doctor along with a letter, along with a check for $500 of their time for a phone consultation about their client. Doctor's going to get $500. Yeah, I'll talk to this guy for 30 minutes. I get the doctor on the phone and say, look, I hate to do this to you. I don't want to have to depose you. The other side, they hired an expert that says that you shouldn't have done the surgery and it wasn't caused by the car crash and your bills are too high. And usually they get a little fired up, right? Like, how dare they say that? Well, look, I don't want to have to drag you to trial. What I'd rather do is easiest. We could just take a deposition on Zoom. You could be in your office. You can have all the medical records there. Would that be easier for your doctor? By the way, we'll pay you for your time for $1,500 an hour to do that. That's how you have to be able to do it. But this is why you have to lean on other people in your community. Like we have at Justice HQ, there's an experts in a treatment channel where people can just ask, you know, so-and-so doctor. It's always 6 degrees of separation. There may be somebody that knows that doctor that could be, oh yeah, I can get you in touch with that person. You can usually look to see where they went to medical school. They might be similar friends with people. I look up doctors on Instagram, Facebook to see similar friends that may be an in for you. But that treater and deposition could win or lose the case for you, and you want to get in their ear first, 100%.
Okay, and Joel Duboff, forgive me if I did not pronounce that correctly, saying this is great. He's enjoying this. He's asking if you're willing to travel and co-counsel cases in the East.
Yeah, I do all the time, for sure. And what I like to do is I'm setting up a monthly workshop at Justice HQ where we're going to workshop everybody's disc injury cases, where people just bring in their medical records, their case, and help guide them in the right directions. Because sometimes it's not the right co-counseling case, but I can still help and our firm can help. But yeah, absolutely. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, bro. Went to school in DC. I'm on the East a lot.
Right, that's right. And Ginger was saying that you can take as much time as you like. We're not in a rush here, so it's just on your schedule, my friend.
Sweet. Another big thing is about healthcare costs. So they ask a lot of questions about healthcare costs. And we're honest about what the insurance is, but we like to write answers like this so it dares the defense to try to make this an issue at trial. So the plaintiff understands the medical providers what's owed, including paying back any insurance company, like his health insurance company, and we attach all the medical records and bills. And sometimes they'll put in there that, you know, as you know, his health insurance company has a lifetime maximum that they cannot meet. It takes the health insurance company too much money to get in. But this is the chance for the lawyer to handcraft the answers for your client in written verified discovery with the right tone. So if it's shown in front of a jury, then it makes it sound much more natural and how you want it to read. You can see this one. He does not allege that he cannot use that area, but he tries to refrain from overexerting his hand. You can see that at the bottom here, that's how we answer. And again, hedge those answers. So it's not all or nothing. It's not never. Man, there's so much stuff here. Again, we try to list everything here. Look, we're honest about, look, the prior injury that they had subsided 6 to 8 weeks. Here's the doctors that they saw. These people are usually your best friends, the prior doctors that they treated with and they discharged them, because the defense has to some sort of allege that these doctors missed this critical injury that your client needed surgery for in the years prior to the accident. So it's like, well, you saw this person for 6 to 8 weeks. Did you think that they had any type of debilitating disc injury? Did you think they had radiculopathy? Did you think that they needed an MRI? Did you think that they needed spine surgery? So when you saw this person with just a sprain, yep, absolutely, right? And then you can defeat a lot of the usual defenses with them. But again, we know the answer to this because we got all the medical records ahead of time. Do not answer discovery unless you have all the medical records. Absolutely not, because you can catch your clients. Your client can get caught in a lie that you didn't prepare for, that you should have. And that's when it's end game. That's when you lose. If your client lies, and it's usually the lawyer's fault because they weren't prepared, they didn't have all the records, you're done.
I had kids like that in Houston. Two surgeries and TBI treatment. We had over $1 million of medical of my money in the case. And the attorney told him, whatever you think it may be, is my job to make sure that I can spin this for you and on your behalf. And jury found him malingering and awarded him 50,000 plus interest.
Yep. And that's the thing, is like, don't hide that. Everybody has prior neck and back pain. Everybody's lived life. Like, I've never had back pain ever in my life. You never woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Everybody has, and then it goes away, right? Just be honest about it. I'm a big proponent of overproducing. Send them all the photos, send them all the medical records, right? The truth helps you. Never say never. Number one rule for our plaintiffs: never say you can, absolutely cannot, no way you can ever do something. Just say you try, it hurts, etc. Plaintiff's deposition, like I always have this like thing that I always wanted to do is if I had a really good plaintiff, like A++++, is I want them to walk into the deposition one time and just totally bomb it on purpose. So the defense writes back a thing to the insurance company, says, this guy's an asshole, no jury would like him, and then just force the trial. But I think that's a kind of dangerous tactic. But jurors like to help people they like. They like to help people that are looking for help, that they're rooting for. So it's about that story. How is this? Yes, here's the injury. How's it affecting you? How are you doing things and change your life to cater to that injury? And how is it hurting your ability to be the best dad that you could be, the best coworker that you could be, the best lover that you could be? All these things that make it real for the jury. That's why that story is very important. But at the time of deposition, you don't have to list every single problem that you're having with your client. You can, it depends on what the defense is asking, but it's their opportunity to have their questions answered. And that's it. Because many times by the time we get to trial, I have a whole new narrative for our client that they didn't ask questions about, that they didn't see coming, because they didn't know how to ask the right questions. But again, opportunity to get your case resolved, because the first thing the defense attorney does after the deposition is they write a report back to the insurance carrier. Whole first page is just how your client presents. They usually grade them. So it has nothing to do with the injuries. It's just, is the jury going to like this person or not?
That comes from building that story. And speaking of stories, Daniel O'Brien has a case. How do you handle a client with multiple prior MVCs and lumbar pain for 14 years, including bad pain 2 months before subject motor vehicle collision? But she says that radiculopathy and function aggravated severely by this MVC, going to trial with an open policy. So how do you tell a story about somebody with that much history?
I mean, you have to embrace it. You have to have a medical timeline. I do black and white medical timeline that says date, procedure, right? All the way through. So they can see how often they were treating before. And if you have prior medical records that do not have radiculopathy, because if they're dealing with like just a sprain that's continuous, and then they're set up for injury, they get in a car crash and it pushes the disc out a little bit more, that causes that neurological pain that now you need surgery for, that's how you win. And it's a clinical picture. We use Even Up for the interactive timelines so that I can go in and see all the medical records by pushing a button and seeing what's tied to it in the timeline. black and white for the jury, but I can easily show the jury all the medical stuff in time. It's the clinical picture that matters. Now, in a case like that, unless you have an objective change in the MRI before and after, it may be a little difficult if the only thing that you have is your client had these prior pains and had prior radiculopathy, and they say, but it was much worse after. Now it's just a credibility challenge for your client. Now you have to go back on that story. Are they active before? Are they doing yoga? Are they having a golf handicap? Can you track their Apple Watch for activity? And is it way less afterwards? You have to then concentrate on that story if everything is the same. It's just that it was made worse. But that does get a little challenging if the client had the same exact symptoms before and the same exact symptoms after. They got to change somehow. And I think that's where you have to get into the medical records and see it, and then talk to the prior doctors. If the prior doctors say your client was not a surgical candidate, they were just dealing with a soft tissue chronic sprain, and all of a sudden that they are, that's how you can try to win your case. It changed, it was made worse.
So what if this plaintiff never saw a neurosurgeon prior?
Then that's a good fact for you because they weren't ever surgical. But talk to those doctors, they'll be your best friends, especially if they saw them afterwards. Then they're the ones that are like advocating for your client to show how the pain levels changed, how everything changed, and how they did objective tests during clinical exam and how it's changed, and they know their body because they saw them before and after. In a real world situation, if somebody's treating with a chiropractor for maintaining, or they have prior back pain and they get in a crash, they're not going to go to a new chiropractor. They're going to go back to the person they've been comfortable with. And I think it's a great idea because that person can do a before and after picture. So there's good people to talk to. This is an exhibit in every one of my trials, the dermatome map. It shows where the nerve carries from the spine each way. My clients know this by the time they have their deposition taken, and they know this when they go into their medical doctors, because if your clients are drawing medical pain diagrams that match up with something that looks like this, I usually put it side by side with like my client's pain diagram that just happens to match up exactly with the MRI. So it's very hard for the defense says that it's unrelated. One trip up here is there's something called perfect radiculopathy, which is it's the exact nerve pattern and it's constant. Rarely does it ever happen. And every doctor will tell you most people have imperfect radiculopathy will be somewhat normal to this. It'll come and go and wax and wane. Defense trick will say, unless they have that immediate, perfect radiculopathy from the time of the crash up until the time of surgery, that it's unrelated and your client's not credible. It's bullshit. No medical doctor worth their salt will agree with that because it changes. It's different per person. Another important fact is, I do this in jury selection all the way through, is everybody agrees that medicine is for the individual. We're all not just one data point. Everybody's body's different, and everybody will agree with you. Like, you may tolerate something better than this due to an allergy. Everybody's different, so every patient has to be treated differently and not clustered together with sham science. I don't know if I'm going to have so much time to go through all the biomechanical stuff, but the biomechanical stuff, I could do a whole thing on this.
Let me know when we have time for another framing question.
I know. So throw me the question.
I know everyone loves you, man. They love your input. So Jeffrey wants to know, how would you frame a case where a younger client, radicular symptoms match with MRI and confirm with NCS EMG, and the defense IME even acknowledges that it's related to the incident or accident, but defense expert says the recommended fusion is only a possibility, but the client absolutely won't proceed with the fusion because he has military friends also get fusions and didn't improve their quality of life? Would you argue that he'll need the surgery eventually because he's young, or would you focus on chronic systems since defense expert admits related accident, not to focus on future?
This is where you can have a dual life care plan. One is a lifetime of pain management, and one is one that has the surgery and how that looks. And actually, the one with a lifetime of pain management without the surgery may be more. That way, it gives options for the jury to be able to pick. And if your client is in the military, another very big sword you can use is they could be medicaled out of certain parts of the military, and there's a loss of their like pension, or there's a whole expert. He's in Ohio, and like I had a pilot that had to have a total knee replacement and a fusion due to a car crash, and we were able to prove an extra like $8 million worth of economics due to his loss of military benefits through this. I can't even understand what the guy did, but like we sent this over to the insurance company, and they just literally like, well, we thought they were joking that we demanded their full 10 million. We sent all that over and they just paid it. We're like, all right, that was cool. But yeah, it's I don't blame your client. I mean, a young kid getting a fusion, that's a serious thing. And I think that's the thing that you talk about, and talk about all the chronic pain that they'll have. And the doctors talk about when it'll get worse and when he can't be just Mr. Tough Guy anymore, you know? All right. Plaintiff depositions, there's stuff that we go over with them, how to address liens or letter protection, priors, and just to be honest with everything. Big question, how do you find your lawyer? I would suggest that's privacy, who cares? But like, always have a good story. You know, my client or my lawyer is he's he goes to my church, he's a good human being. Whatever. Just have your client say something to dare the defense to try to bring it up. The ones that another big thing is look at your client's employment records, because sometimes they have workplace injuries, or sometimes they're complaining about other stuff, or maybe they have a very clean one. And sometimes in your client's employment records, like I've represented a few people at hospitals, nurses, and they have like pretty stringent requirements on physical capabilities that will then take them out of the workforce. They can't push or carry so much weight, and it helps you prove your case that they were able to do all these things before, and now they cannot do it afterwards. It's black and white. It's in their employment records. Sub rosa just means video of your client, just to where we have in California. Means below the rows or something like that. But be cognizant they may have video of your client. They may have seen them traveling, you know, that kind of stuff. I don't want to spend too much time because I want to get into the expert deposition. So here's the big one for treaters, which I talked about. They can win your case for you. Communicate with them. I do that trick by sending them, get them fired up, trial subpoena. Give notice. You have to give notice every most jurisdictions that you're going to play it for trial. It's for evidence code or for CCP here in California. Because you're giving the defense notice you're going to play it for trial. They're usually treating it as a discovery deposition. You go in and do a direct examination. You have your animations ready, your imaging ready for the doctor to go up and advocate for you. You're talking about causation, need for future care, cost of care, defeating all the defenses, and you literally have this this bulletproof trial deposition that you could, to win your case, you could just go in there and just press play. That's what you want to be able to do. So I usually identify when I get a case brought in, I'll look and see all the treating doctors, which ones have said very helpful things for us, and say, well, let's take the depositions of these 5, kill the defense case before even their lead trial lawyer gets involved. It's going to be some associate that's taking discovery depots and you've won your case. So, but there's 2 different, when I take the treating deposition is winning your case with unbiased and defeating all the normal defenses. You know what's going to be. It's just the normal general process. They should have got better in 3 to 6 months. There was no compression in the MRI. Maybe it's something else causing the injuries. Maybe it's like lifting kids or some shit like that. You know what they're all going to say. So defeat them with treating doctors, and sometimes their own. Talk to the doctor beforehand, talk about that. This is what it looks like in California. We have to give notice like this. So this is the CCP 2025. Just make sure that it's in there, because the judge is going to ask you first thing, did you give notice? If you gave notice, they're going to let you play it. You have to contact the doctor. Oh, here's something very important. You got to toe that line, because you cannot make that treating doctor a retained expert. If you start giving them information outside the normal course and scope of their treatment, and more records and more information or depositions, you've now elevated them to getting outside information. Now they're no longer a treating doctor. They have to be your retained expert. So they have to stay in their box, all the stuff that they have, their medical records. But remember, you can still give them hypotheticals of all the real clinical picture of everything that you know. But it just don't try to overdo it, I should say.
Got a few questions.
Yep, go.
All right. Do you have an expert you can share when you were talking about military loss plan expert?
I got to get it for you. I'm going to text my buddy I had on that case. Let's see, who's that military?
Next question. Jessica asked, oh, that was Jessica's question. Forgive me. Let's see. Helen Lim would like to know, what do you do when you have a surgical recommendation, but the client does not wish to proceed with the surgery?
It's a very common thing. So you got to tell your client, like, you look, see what the policy limits are. I mean, it's all that, leveraging stuff like this, but you just tell them, like, the jury's not going to believe you're going to get the surgery unless you get it. I mean, usually that's what's going to happen. And I don't blame clients ever for having a surgery, because it's very intrusive, but they should be doing everything they can to not have that surgery. If they're recommended pain management, they should be trying that, physical therapy, and they should be documenting that and letting you know. But that's real. I mean, I have clients that don't get the surgery, or there's years from surgery recommendation until they get it. That happens. That's life. And when you pick jury, or, when you're asking jurors about gaps in treatment, or people trying to put off stuff after recommended surgery, most people do that. Like it's a scary thing. But yeah, it happens all the time. But you just have to, write a kind of cover your ass letter that if they're not going to get the surgery, they may not pay full value, but you don't blame them. So, but it happens. That's every day.
Thank you for that. And in a situation where there's subsequent injuries to the same body part soon after DOI.
Yeah, I'm going to show you how to deal with that one. That happens commonly. So if there's a subsequent crash or subsequent injury, and how that ties in. So one is you can make your clients now more susceptible, because this is going to happen in life, that now they're more set up. And the other one is to try to get it excluded because it had nothing to do with your client's journey of injury. And I'll show you that. That's why they should always go back to the same doctor. So the same doctor can be, if there's an orthopedic surgeon seen them before, they get a subsequent accident, see them after, you say, yeah, they got this other crash, but it was like a minor blip on the radar. This is the first one that caused it. And helps with credibility. You go on the jury, say, look, if my client was such a liar, cheating, a fraud, why did they go after this guy too, that caused the second crash? Well, because the second crash, the doctors say, didn't have much to do with it. But the causation should be the one that has the most insurance policy money, right, Rich? That's who really did it. All right. That was being recorded. That was a joke. That was tongue in cheek, kind of, not really. So we put this in here, do a direct exam. We say the expert witness is not limited to opinion testimony based on observation, treatment of the plaintiff. Just put it in the notice so you have everything. Okay, critical part of the talk, fucking it's 123, is use of jury instructions. Look these up in your jurisdiction. This is one, is substantial factor. The second one here is, well, that's causation. Two is aggravation of pre-existing injury, and three is unusually susceptible plaintiff. I mirror all my questions to the doctors, to my discovery questions, to the experts off these jury instructions, because you can win your case by just doing that. Here's ours in California. I like to concentrate on the second one. Conduct is not a substantial factor in causing the same harm if the same harm would have occurred without the conduct. So I throw back the defense. Doctor, can you say with a reasonable degree of medical probability, if this crash never occurred, that my client would have needed spine surgery? I can't say that. Well, you just lost defense, right? And I'll show you these questions I actually ask. Same thing here. If it's made worse, they still have to barely compensate them. I show the jury this. I do the two roads thing. Show them we still win on both of these. I show the questions I ask their experts and deposition, how even if we listen to the defense doctors, we win. Same thing with unusually susceptible plaintiff. I use the brittle bone disease thing here, but I get these things out of the treating doctors too. I ask them these questions. So to ferret it out. Common defenses. This is what they always say. Something else caused it. Big conspiracy on the liens, experts own stuff, radiculopathy not perfect, return referrals, the medical bill should be fucking Medicare. Ask every defense expert, by the way, defense doctor, if you're in your practice, if you accepted Medicare rates across the board, would your practice survive? They laugh and say no. Then when some jabroni defense billing expert comes and says everybody should pay Medicare rates, it's like, come on, dude, you got to be kidding me. Surgery not reasonable. Ultimate
I
cost.
can't believe you know the word jabroni.
Jabroni. Dude, I'm so
I
excited.
haven't heard this since college.
Dude, Monday Night Raw is coming to LA on January 6th, and you bet your ass I have my suited Intuit ready. So here's ones. I just ask their doctors, I ask treating doctors, but these are ones they're going to say every time they might be causing something. This is a defense doc. You treat patients on a lien? Yes. All right, cool. We got that out there. If there's a subsequent medical malpractice issue, doesn't cut off causation in case they try to go there. Here's a big one. I pit defense experts against each other by asking them the same questions, and they can't get their story straight, because if they have a radiologist and they have an orthopedic surgeon and some other doctor, like, one is always the biggest like scumbag that will just lie about everything, and the other two will probably just be styled with medical knowledge. And this is how you defeat a lot of them. So all the plaintiffs agree, cumulative MIs. So this is one I had a $17 million verdict on, like that damage, which you couldn't even see. And
Wow.
it was just, disc injuries, neck and back, and a neck fusion, back fusion. And the defense didn't take it seriously because they said the car's not hurt bad, the person can't be hurt bad. And that was a critical point of my jury selection. Got a lot of people offer cause on that and asking for a lot of money, and they paid it. But I mean, it's deposition purpose. Are you taking expert deposition to settle it, to scare the shit out of them with all the ammo and buy stuff that you know? Or are you trying to set them up for trial? Two different theories. What I try to do is live feed, as we have all of our lawyers look into this. We've done it through Justice HQ, where I'll put the link in there, but you could watch. I think it's the best way to do it is to see how somebody actually takes these. Most of my expert depositions are 30 minutes-ish. I go in, get the concessions I need, and all their opinions, get out and set them up. I have a great outline here, which I'm not going to go over, but it'll be in the materials. So you can see all the stuff that I use here to go over. I usually just go with the flow and I go back to make sure I didn't miss anything. Great thing about these defense experts is they're usually not given everything, and they will concede to you that they weren't giving the imaging studies, they weren't giving you all the medical records, and all of a sudden the defense is hiding things for their own expert. Very good stuff you get in the expert depositions to really sink them. We can go through all that. Substantial factor, again, here's how I use it in actual. So in this case, I had a client, they got in a car crash, had disc injury, MRI that shows that she had an osteophyte. Osteophyte is a bony material it's a hardened disc that takes years to form. We know that's not caused by the crash, but I believe she had a herniation. They could jet it out from that because she didn't have any problems. She gets in this crash. Now she has a ridiculous pain. She gets recommended for surgery. She takes off for 2 years, 2 years, does not go get the surgery. She's seen physical therapy maybe every other month. She comes back, she gets the surgery. She's better. In the interim, she has a car crash. This goes back to the question that we had. She had a car crash in the interim of this 2 years. And the defense, you'll know what the defense's arguments are because they're going to tell you. The defense lawyer is going to put in their mediation brief. They're going to say your case sucks, and they're going to tell you all the reasons why. So what I do is I write down all the stuff that their defense lawyer is saying, and I just ask their expert about it. Now, first, I'm going to show you that they're going to say the whole thing. It's a disc osteophyte. It can't be caused by that. I'm not saying it's acute. Like they thought this was an all or nothing acute case, and they never prepare for their aggravation or pre-existing condition. So I asked their expert. This is their orthopedic doctor, Dr. Michael Weinstein. Reasonable degree of medical probability. Make sure you frame it with that. Always say that standard. When that disc is osteophyte at C5-6, one would have become symptomatic had the crash not occurred. Now, again, I'm framing it to the jury instruction, so I could show the jury I'm winning with these questions. He cannot predict that. Now, what we tell you is that this person can have a disc osteophyte in their neck or back. It could be there forever, and you can never have pain from it. Okay, so take it a step further. You agree that somebody could have this disc osteophyte, which takes years to form, this pre-existing condition, and be completely asymptomatic. You could have some neck stiffness, but yes, she'd be non-symptomatic. Is there a way to tell when that person would start? There's no way to tell when they would start to develop symptoms. That's correct. So you could have an underlying trauma, such as a rear-end car crash, which could cause the underlying degenerative condition to become symptomatic. I just mirrored it to that jury instruction. I just won my case with their expert. Right? So this is the other incident. The defense talked about it. Oh, she had another car crash. She had neck pain from that. That's what caused it. I just asked this guy, you were she was another car crash? I am. Who told you that? The lawyer, the defense? Yeah. Did you get any records? No. Do you know anything about it? No. Can you say if she had any injuries to the standard? I can't say anything. Motion in limine, granted. Guess what? They were not even allowed to talk about that subsequent crash because they're expert. It's their burden to show that there was something else that caused the injuries or contributed to it. It's the defense's burden. If they cannot meet it with their expert, they're done. Ask the questions. Again, work, lifting kids, liens. I'm asking their guy, do you accept liens? He's like, I do. But we don't bill differently. Now I get this guy, I'm just asking, but you want full payment because they had a billing expert that says you should get Medicare rates and you shouldn't take liens, but their expert takes liens. Their expert expects full payment. And I go and ask him, like, why do you do liens? And he's pretty much talking about how it does like a great service for the community. The guy's doing my job for me. But ask the questions. What's the worst going to happen? He says, I don't take liens. I think they're garbage. Well, they were going to say that anyway, but you might get gold. Ownership and Surgery Center. He owned one. I pulled his divorce records. I knew he did. So I asked a question. He had ownership. So when my guy did too, who cared? He gets attorney referred stuff. I'm going fast. I'm sorry. Match it to this chemical radiculopathy. And this is the defense was saying my client didn't have constant radiculopathy, so therefore it's unrelated. The defense attorney, so I asked the expert, those radicular symptoms can come and go. He's like, yes, they can come and go. They can wax and wane. So when they had another expert, this radiologist saying it has to be constant, their expert, the surgeon's like, no, that's not true. Look for video, ask their defense experts if they've seen video of your client, because then they might have to produce it if they showed their expert. It gives you a good clue what they have. And they always say the surgery is not reasonable. I just got this guy to concede that she was a surgical candidate. He might not have been the surgery, but it was still there. Biomechanics, whole seminar of itself, but I had to feed biomechanics with the other defense experts and the treating doctors by pretty much them saying that biomechanics is bullshit. This is another defense expert shitting on the biomechanical expert in the same case. He says either you're injured or you're not. I don't care about biomechanics. Little insight, they'll tell you, because people have pre-existing conditions. Who cares about the force of impact that they're doing on dummies to check out acute injuries and biomechanical crash studies. I mean, I'll go through this fast, but there's some great published journal out there. This is one from 1999 that says that all this stuff the defense biomechanical experts rely on is all bullshit. And this is a published peer-reviewed article in Spine. And then they re-followed it up. This is a great article, which I could send you. Oh, I didn't put the follow-up study in here, but there's one in 2021, which they did a follow-up study to again show in a peer-reviewed journal that all the biomechanical literature that these defense experts rely on is all unreliable. Small sample size data, unverified things, not taking consideration XYZ. Peer-reviewed article that'll defeat everything that they do. Am I gonna go here? I'm already over time, Richard. Do we have any more questions? Because I was gonna get into some cross stuff, but
Oh, you're good,
Yeah.
man. There's no questions right now, and we're not in a rush. So if you want to take an extra couple minutes, we're on your clock, man.
all right. Sorry, I'm talking fast, but
No, you're good. You're
you
doing
love
great.
it. So I think the way you win a lot of these cases, when I set up cross-examination, I usually hit them with a haymaker they don't see coming, something outside the box. I do that by tracking their schedules. It's very powerful when you know their schedule better than they do, when they try to claim that they're like at the hospital treating patients, and you can prove that they're actually not. They're testifying against plaintiffs in other courtrooms. Use your listservs in your community to get this information. And Google is your best friend. You can find a lot of really good information on these medical experts, where they are, who they talk to, what seminars they've been in, YouTube videos that they've done, all of these things and stuff that they do not see coming. I have a box of death that I pull out on the table. I call it, and I have all the impeachment stuff for their expert. Like to know what's in the box. And it's usually something they don't want to hear. But the reason I take these expert depositions is I try to get concessions, those sound bites like I showed you from their expert, to be able to play either my case in chief or crossing their expert, to drive home again that we win on causation using the jury instructions, and even on future care. It's such a great thing when their defense expert says that your client doesn't need any future care, not even one medical prescription, not even one physical therapy appointment. That's how you really piss off the jurors. Say, regardless of regardless of what caused the injury, do you think that my client needs future care now that they've had a fusion surgery? They're like, nope. Oh man, that does not sound so well. You pit defense experts against each other by asking a lot of these questions. They can't answer the questions the same. Make them read on the record what records they actually reviewed. You'd be shocked to learn that sometimes they don't review the diagnostic scans or prior medical records of the plaintiff. Always look in the expert's file to see when they received material. You can see on their bill, like when they reviewed imaging studies. A lot of times these experts have a plug and play medical report that after they see your client, they'll say, I've reviewed your, examined your client in a medical examination and they'll be fine. This should have been 3 to 6 months. They're fine, blah, 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 blah. This is my final opinion. Many times when they do that, they've not seen any single medical records. They've not seen the MRI studies. And you could see that by looking when they actually got those records. Will be later in time. So you say to them, hey, this was your opinion at the time when you saw my client. Yes. And that's because you examined them. Yep. And that's because you reviewed all the medical records. Yes. And you reviewed the diagnostic scans. Yes, I did. And you walk them down that path. That was on this date. You made these determinations. You're telling this jury this is not boilerplate. You don't say this every single time. And you would not say whether or not something was caused without actually looking at the MRI reports, which I would not. I would need to see the MRI films. I would absolutely need to see them. You would never do surgery without seeing the MRI films. That's correct. Well, doctor, isn't it true you didn't see the MRI films for like 6 months after that? In fact, you didn't even have any records, and then you're showing them their file. Very powerful stuff. And a lot of them are lazy. So Kennemer, this is a case law in California, just says make sure you get all of their opinions out at time of deposition. Just ask. Be now share with us all of your opinions at time of trial. Has to be there. These are things I just go through bias. I think that's it. Haymaker. Use the California Evidence Code. I like to buy the books their experts have written and impeach them with their own books. There was a good one here where this expert says that degenerative disc disease doesn't exist, and yet he did a study where he says, in fact, it did exist. Well, I found the study, impeached him with it, and it was a big laugh factory to that guy. Use your evidence code. Here's Google. Use the defense expert and defense seminar. You can find it where they're talking. I found this guy, this trucking expert, Racks Reconstructions, who says he never talks to these types of things. I set him up. I knew that he did because I found it on Google, and he talked about dizzying array of black boxes. There was an issue in my case where the defense's truck big rig had no black box data in it. And of course, this guy's doing a talk about black box data, which he said he didn't do talks to the defense, but here he is. And look at the talk before that with strategies on minimizing high damages cases, 7 figures and beyond. So I got all this into evidence, and it was, again, laugh factory at that defense expert. Another cool little thing, any doctor that is a public employee, they hire a lot of defense experts that are at teaching hospitals that are public. These are schools like the UC Region schools, UCSB, UC Irvine, Arizona State, that kind of stuff. If they're working there, they're public employees subject to public law, public disclosures. You can look up and see how much they make. You can also look up, we go and just do a public records request to see what disclosures they're making to their employer, the hospital, to the public. This expert here said he was making, look at this, $4,000 a year doing expert work, $4,000 a year, because they're not supposed to be doing more than X amount of their salary, and they're not supposed to be out of the hospital so much because it's a teaching hospital. This guy admits to making $500,000 a year just doing expert work for the defense, and now he's defrauding the taxpayers by saying he makes $4,000, supposed to be the hospital teaching, and what's he doing? Testifying against the injured folks. So this facade that he's this teaching doctor, it's not true. You can find these with any state employee. There's a signature. Here's another expert that says he didn't know any of the other experts on the case, and here he was that I found on Google. He was in a golf tournament with one of the other experts in the case. That went over very well. And then he tried to say he wasn't so good at golf and tried to make a joke. I was like, but you got 3rd place. You guys must have been pretty good, unless you were cheating, right? Always goes back to the jury instructions, red herrings. I talk a lot about this. I was asked the jury to look for red herrings because the defense likes to throw all these things out there that have nothing to do with the case. Another wreck. These are all the red herrings that I see all the time. Like, what does this have to do with things? And then, sorry, I'm going fast, but then I always show the jury that the jury had all the puzzle pieces, but their experts were intentionally not giving all the pieces of the puzzle. Radiologists not giving the clinical records. Their doctor that they hired wasn't given the prior records, wasn't given depositions, wasn't giving all these things. They intentionally don't give them all the information. Damages of the car, just because they want to try to trick the jury. Why do they do that? Man, that's it. I could go into like 6 days of this shit and workshop everybody's stuff.
We got to make another conference just for that.
Oof.
Hey, great job, man. There was a question from earlier, and I was going to bring up your book again. Would there be an audio book version of it?
I don't know, but I'm going to press them to do it, and I want to negotiate with Morgan Freeman to do it.
That would be very rad.
I think you do a good job, Rich.
Oh, thank you. You say I have a nice voice. You make me blush, and you can't see that because the camera makes me overexposed.
Any other
Bob, I was going to say this is amazing. I'm actually having so much fun just reading the chat box.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that I couldn't see till just now. So,
and I know next time now we need to book you like way longer to go about this, because this is such an incredible topic, but also there's so much to talk about. So I love your idea of maybe getting more into the biomechanics later on, but I don't want another year to go by. We got to have you back soon.
yeah, I mean, it's little stuff like if you do during surgery, they'll do an it's like an electricity test. I'm blanking right now, neuromonitoring. So what they'll do is the defense always say there's no compression, should have done the surgery. When they do these tests during surgery, they monitor the nerves to see the signal going down because there's disruption going down. So they'll monitor, and after the surgery, they take the disc off the nerve. You'll see 100% that the nerve is working. And that's run by like a third-party machine. So it's like, I always say, like, was my client like under anesthesia? Were they faking the symptom at the time, right? There's no way that they're faking that. But there's all these little things that you can pick up, like the surgery report, if they're saying there's a like disc fragment material, and sometimes they'll take the disc fragment material they took off of the nerve, they'll send it to pathology. And if you I've got that, I subpoenaed the records from the pathology, and they had a picture of the white disc material. It was beautiful. And I showed the jurors, like, they're saying this is all made up. The doctor actually pulled this out of the body, and it went to pathology to show that there was a disc fragment floating there, just like we told you that there was. That kind of stuff.
Well, I wanted to say a few things before we hop off today. First, I am going to be emailing you guys a bunch of information. After this webinar, you will get a copy of Bob's slides. I also wanted to share with you guys the link real quick. I put it in the, here's a copy of his new book, which is coming out. Can you guys see this? In January 2025. I definitely want you to go and check this out, order it, add it to your collection and read it. And then feel free to stay in touch with Bob, ask him questions. Also check out his social media. He's got right there at Planet Fun Bob. If you guys are on Instagram, Facebook, you can stay in touch with him as well. He puts a lot of great information on there. And then
Yeah.
I'm hearing now he's got this new whiskey coming out. So Bob, anything you want to share about that?
It's delicious. But I put in the chat that Justice Team link here is my SharePoint. You can download that. That's the PowerPoint that I just did. So I don't know if Ginger, if you want to grab that too. But again, I think that link expires in a week, so download it.
Okay,
So you got it.
fantastic. I'll definitely save that. And then also, are there any upcoming seminars? I know that we've got ours, which I'm just going to put up here just for 1 second. Again, the TBI seminar, John Romano is working on the schedule. It should be out hopefully in the next like week or two. It'll be sometime after Christmas, but you can go to our website, find out some information about it. But save this date. Bob, I need you to save this date as well. I'll be in touch about that. I know HMR is coming. We've got Fox with AE coming, all of our great partners. It's going to be a lot of fun. And speaking of partners, I see that Ted is here. He's going to be doing our coffee giveaway in just a moment. But Bob, back to you real fast. Is there any other great seminars? Because you are so connected with the network. You've been there. You've been speaking and organizing a lot of amazing seminars yourself. And I want to make sure that everyone knows about all these other great seminars that are happening around the country as well.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of obviously. I'm a big fan of workshopping people's issues and like seeing their exact cases to be able to do that. Like one company that we have called Justice HQ, we do that all the time with people and specialists of different areas. Maybe somebody's good at business operations. I choose to try to do disc injury things to help people across the nation doing these all the time, from trial strategies, whatever. I think that's a critical piece that you got to be in groups of people that are really good at what they do and helping you hands-on. The conferences that I like to go to, I know the ones that I'm going to this year, and I'm going to National Child Lawyers at the end of January in Miami. Law Tigers, I do a lot of motorcycle stuff, so that's early March, I believe. God, there's so many. Lanier Trial Academy, which is fantastic. Business of Law one, I like those. That's in November in Arizona.
And do you have a website for the Justice HQ for anybody who'd like to?
Yeah, it's just justicehq.com. And then what we're trying to do with like the whole idea is to get the cases to the best lawyer for that case. So by empowering everybody and teaching everybody, look, we see all these masterminds where people pay thousands of dollars a month just to be in the room with people to tell them what to do. We try to create a project where it's a few $100s a month and people have access to everything and everybody at the same time to be able to create your own workshops, your own mentorship groups. We have an Airbnb model in there too, so people can actually list their office space so that other people can actually just pop in, like my office space. There's people want to come in and our app just like sets it all up for you. I mean, that's the kind of stuff when like on-demand education it's in there. And then the idea with attorney share, the case marketplace is we want the best lawyers to get those cases easily and not have to worry about marketing costs and do these other things. They could just sit on a marketplace and be like, well, I'm really good at that employment disability case in Mississippi, and somebody pops up and they find the best person for it and share fees and share fun. So yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you
Hey,
so
Bob, I know
much.
you're a big proponent of AI. Can you share with everyone what type of AI companies you like to integrate with your practice?
Yeah, so we use Even Up for all the medical record stuff. I think they're the best at it. It's some things try to be faster, but it's inaccurate. Their stuff is great and hyperlinked. We use that one every day for research. We've been doing a lot of Lexis AI stuff, just LexisNexis. We use Foundation AI. Foundation AI is one that takes all of our incoming mail and puts it in the folders where they need to be, which is a huge time save. I mean, that's something that has been a time suck for us for a very long time. I built up my own personal AI bot that you can ask a question. Actually, I should probably put a link in here, but it's I downloaded all my trial transcripts, all my depositions, all the talk shows I've ever done, the book that I've written, all these things, and I put into my mind so that you can ask my artificial intelligence bot questions and answers it as me. And it's pretty good. Like, can ask, give me a deposition outline. What do you do in this situation? And it's getting pretty good.
I think I saw a great example of that recently. If I'm wrong, tell me I am. But the question was,
Oh,
if somebody was to represent you like a celebrity in court, who would that be? And I think your answer was Matthew McConaughey. And I thought that was so cool.
but I didn't know that they did that because until she showed me. So she went and asked my AI bot the same
Uh-huh.
question and answered the same thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll put the chat in.
Well, we might need to do an AI webinar with you as well, because we've been doing a few of those lately. It's been very interesting and it's so fast forward. It's always changing. So I'd love to do something like that with you too.
Yeah, I just put my chat bot in here, which it has my voice too. If you use the chat built into personal AI, it has my voice that can answer questions. We're eventually going to turn it into my avatar so it can answer questions. Like, so I want to be able to do this talk without me being here. I think it would be fucking awesome. So that's what we want to get.
Why do you look like an Asgardian, like Thor's brother or
I
cousin?
know. Wow, Bob got really ripped lately. Wow.
Chisel defined the cheekbones are, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much. Since we got Ted here, I wanted him to go ahead and announce the special coffee giveaway winner. I think this time they're going to win 2 bags of a new Costa Rica style coffee, right, Ted? As well as a really
Correct.
cool coffee mug.
Yeah, so it's I just switched things up. So I've got a couple of coffee winners from a couple weeks ago as well. Everything is coming in, so I'll be able to start sending stuff out nice and fresh. But it's a Costa Rican terrazzo. I've tasted it, fantastic. So we're switching things up after, what has it been? Almost 4 years. So it's 2 bags and a really cool coffee mug. And I'll be sending those out here. But I'm really excited to announce the winner for the second to last webinar of the year is Jeff Dean out of Georgia. So congratulations on some great, great, great coffee.
Congratulations, Jeff. That is awesome. Well, I know that he's definitely going to enjoy it. And Ted, we cannot thank you enough for always doing this. I think we've done like over 400 webinars now. I've lost count, Bob. It's been since 2020. We've been doing different topics, different speakers. It's been incredible that you guys have been there with us from the start. And I cannot thank you enough for all that you do, Ted. This is a perfect lead in to Richard, because if anyone is watching today who has not heard what HMR does, I wanted him to just take a minute to share what you guys do, because we are so grateful to work with you guys. You've got a great reputation. You've got a great team. And we're just honored to work with you.
I really appreciate that. It means a lot because we do strive very hard. We understand that it is reputation-based business. And we've been in this business for quite a long time, just about 12 years, 13 years, doing medical funding, which is our bread and butter. We also help the plaintiffs, because when you have cases that go all the way, your plaintiffs need help. They're not working, their car's totaled. We can help cover their monthly bills. We can also help you as an attorney afford these trials, because that's kind of the name of the game now, is who has the most experts. You know, I mean, back in the day, 10 years ago, if a defense counsel sees a law firm and they don't notice a big name, they know you don't have a war chest, they're just getting a couple experts in, and you're just trying to settle because you can't afford those guys, right? But now it's coming to the point where we have HMR and firms like ours that have funds to help finance or fund the trials. So the defense counsel knows, like, hey, it doesn't matter who you are. It's a level playing field when you got the funds. You got to pay to play in this business. So we can definitely help you go all the way. And we're not shy of litigation. We've been doing this for a very long time. Done over 11,000 cases, I think, Ted. And we operate in 40 states. I mean, you may not have heard us, but that's because it's intentional. We stay under the radar. We know what we're doing, and there's no one better on your case to help you get the justice that your client deserves.
Yeah, and you guys, HMR also does a great job of connecting folks. So if you need that specialist doctor, or like this, all the stuff we talked about, Rich and his team know who they are because they work a lot with them very closely. So it's a big thing. Like, I know me and a lot of other folks will just text Rich if we need help with that. So that's something they do that's just not spoken of, but it's something we all need.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help. I mean, I specialize in brain injury cases, and we do debridements, amputees, whatever. Even if your client has a recommendation for ESI and the doctor won't hold a lien, you can call me up. But I just love helping people out, even if I'm not on the case, or it's a doctor that just wants to hold his lien. That's fine. Like, I just want to make sure people get quality healthcare.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm eternally grateful when you were talking about connecting, Bob, because if it wasn't for Richard, I wouldn't have met you. We're in Los Angeles when I lived there, and Richard's like, you got to meet Bob. And I was like, sure, let's go out to lunch. So ever since then, the rest is history. But you are an incredible trial lawyer. You're so giving of your time. You're so genuine. You are helping so many people across the country, and you're freely doing it. And we can't thank you enough for being an outstanding human. but just a great trial lawyer and good peer to everybody. Thank you so much for all that you do, Bob. And thank you, Richard, again, for bringing this all together.
My pleasure.
All right, well, if you guys have any last minute comments, we're going to head out soon and we'll be back on Thursday for our last webinar of the year.
I had a last shout out for, I know Bob just mentioned he's going to be at NTL coming up. So we're doing our annual HMR After Dark party there. A bunch of great friends. And so as usual, if you're there, stop by. We do this every year. It is an absolute blast. Cigar rollers will be there again this year. So stop by for some fantastic cigars, cocktails, appetizers, you name it.
I will be there 100%. So
Awesome.
we're doing, yeah, we're also there. Trial guys, we're going to try to do a, they're going to have some of the books ready because it comes out on the 28th. So we're going to see if we can bring some earlier,
That's awesome.
be at NTL. So yeah, great event. If anybody's, I've been the last 2 years and it's the connections that I've made there have been just invaluable. So agree.
I'm looking forward to it. I will see you guys there as well. We hope everybody has a great afternoon. Stay in the loop because I'm going to email you in just a few moments. And I'll have all of the recap of the great information that we've shared today. And then you should be able to go to our Connectionology YouTube channel if you'd like to rewatch this webinar later on or share it with a colleague or somebody else in your firm. But thank you guys for all of your support. We'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for attending. Thanks, Bob.